Hello, my beautiful friends. Gabe here from drumbeatsonline.com, and today we are talking about 35 ways to improve your drumming. Now, there is a lot to get through here, so we are going to kind of breeze through it, and I'm going to break everything down into 5 different categories of groove, creativity, sound, speed, and your fills. So with that said, let's start off with number 1. So first, we are going to start off by talking about how to improve your groove. Starting off with number 1, and that is improving your timing. A great way to do this is by playing with a gap click, which is simply when you have the click track going for one measure, but then it is shut off for the second measure. Or you can just play at really slow tempos where there's a lot of space between each click. So if you go to like 50 BPMs or 40 BPMs and just play along, this is a great way to improve your timing. The second thing that you can do to improve your groove is by feathering your bass drum. Basically, this just means that when you hit the bass drum, you allow the beater to come off the head so that you're not choking out the sound the whole time. It's totally fine to bury the beater in certain contexts. I do it all the time. But in a lot of grooves, it helps to be able to feather it so you get more of an open sound from your kick drum. Up next is utilizing ghost notes, which is simply just playing very quiet notes. If you are playing a drum beat and you incorporate some soft ghost notes on the snare drum, it can really add a lot of groove and a lot of feel to your overall playing. And while you are playing your drum beat, it is really important to have the ability to self-mix. Now this just means to be able to adjust the volume of any drum that you're playing, whether it's your hi-hat, whether it's your snare, or your kick drum. This will really allow you to be very versatile in your grooves and in your beats. Adding in accents with your dominant hand can be a really, really great way to change things up and add more texture to your grooves overall. We talked about this last week by simply adding in quarter notes on your hi-hat. This can make a big difference. And something that goes hand in hand with accents is dynamics. Now this is referring to how loud or how soft you are playing your drums. In certain rock scenarios, it's really important to be able to bash the crap out of your drums to get the right feel for that song. But in other scenarios, more groovy and pocket scenarios, it's really important to be able to lay back and not beat the crap out of your drums. So I'd encourage you to be able to work on the full dynamic spectrum so that you can play really soft and you can play really loud. One incredible easy trick that has improved my grooves is the buzz stroke. Simply by pressing the tip of your stick into the head of your snare drum, you can create a really cool buzz stroke that adds a lot of texture. It almost sounds like a reverse snare hit right before a downbeat or something like that. I really love this, and I think it's going to improve your groove quite a bit. Using the double stroke roll anywhere on the kit is always good for improving your groove. Whether you're adding double strokes in on the hi-hat or maybe the snare drum, this is just a great tool that always feels nice and groovy. The 9th thing that you can do is add in the pedal hi-hat. So if you are playing a groove on your ride, then you have the available option to use your pedal hi-hat to add in more texture to your groove or add in these little accents maybe on the upbeat. There's a whole world of possibilities that your pedal hi-hat is capable, so make sure you are trying to utilize them. Speaking of the ride cymbal, this is an instrument that has a lot of musicality, so make sure that you are using it as versatile as you can, whether that's just using the tip of the stick to ride on the ride, or to be able to lay into it, give it a nice crash sound, and also utilize that bell for accents and different things within your groove. Mastering the cross stick is really, really important for those chill grooves. To make sure that you can get a good sound out of your stick against that rim is really, really important. For me, I always make sure that I have my stick turned around so that the butt of the stick is hitting the rim to get a nice fat sound, and that the tip of my stick is about 2 inches away from the other rim. And a friendly little tip to get a clap sound out of your cross stick is on your way down to scrape the rim of your tom. This creates a cool rim flam sound that sounds a heck of a lot like a clap. Now, a nice little bonus tip here for improving your groove is to film yourself. Film your beats and either watch them back yourself or send them to friends who can give you feedback. This is something that I do for all members on DBO Academy. I give them student reviews where they can send me any video of you playing, and I can give you some tips and tricks to try to improve and become even better. And because we are in the countdown to DBO Academy, where doors are opening for new members on August 31st for only 6 days, I am here with another free workshop for you. It's called the Become a Rock Drummer Workshop, and it is a 4-part lesson series that is perfect for beginner to intermediate drummers who are looking to set a perfect rock foundation in their drumming. If you're interested and you want free instant access, go ahead and click right up here or in the link in the description below. But now let's talk about how to improve your creativity. Now we're going to talk about how to improve the creative side of your playing, starting off with linear drumming. If you're not familiar with linear drumming, this is simply when no 2 limbs are hitting the drum at the same time. So if you take any standard groove and take out the notes where drums are hitting at the same time as cymbals or vice versa, well, that's when you have a linear beat on your hand, and this can make them sound a lot more creative and a lot more unique. The next way to be more creative is with your actual playing surfaces. Instead of playing all your beats on the hi-hat, maybe move over to the rim of the drum, or put some type of big fat snare drum on your snare, or put a splash cymbal on your snare. Start to create new creative ways to pull different sounds out of your drums, because this will help you be more creative in the long run. Next up is knowing your rudiments. If you know your core rudiments, then this can really allow you to be more creative, because all this is simply giving you ideas of new sticking patterns, and you can start to transform them from there, which leads us into applying rudiments to your drum beats. Now, if you didn't know, you can actually create an entire drum beat out of simply one rudiment. Take, for example, this paradiddle drum beat. I would never have come up with this if I didn't know my paradiddles. Then we can use what's called rudiment splits, and this is where we split rudiments between our hands and our feet. So for example, if I have a paradiddle diddle that is right, left, 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 I can substitute all the lefts with a kick drum, and now you can start to have a lot of fun with some of your drum beats based off of this rudiment. And polyrhythms can be huge for your creativity. This is such an awesome library of unique rhythms. And if you aren't familiar, a polyrhythm is when 2 evenly spaced rhythms are played at the same time, and the notes only resolve on beat 1. Besides that, none of the notes hit at the same time. So let me show you a quick example of a popular polyrhythm and how we can apply that to our beats. Next up, we are going to talk about how to improve your sound, starting off with the snare drum. Wait, what? Hold on a sec. All right, there we go. What we are going to do is first start off by tuning your resonant snare. Wow, that is so annoying. Let's turn this off. Tip 19 is to tune your bottom snare drum head really high. Some people call this tabletop height. So when you press it in, you almost have no give at all. The reason for this is it reduces a lot of those weird frequencies, plus it gives it more crack and more power. And another thing to help you with both of those things is to use thicker snare wires. So here I have a 32 strand snare wire, which is going to, again, reduce some of those weird frequencies and give it a little bit more body. There goes the cowbell. Then on a personal note, I think it's really helpful to use very controlled snare heads on your batter head. So this is a Remo P77 coated, and these types of heads are going to be the easiest to tune because they're the most controlled. A lot of times those overtones and sustain can be hard to manage, so that's where these heads are really, really helpful. And speaking of control, these dampening gels can be really, really helpful, whether they're moon gels or slap claps or whatever the heck you have. These can help you control your drums just a little bit more. To get really fast, really punchy sounds out of your drum, you can always throw something like a big fat snare drum over it, or a drum tortilla or something like that. These are all ways that your snare sound can be improved if that's the type of sound you're looking for. Now let's talk about how to improve the sound in the rest of your kit, starting off with the toms. Wait, what the f? Okay, so my recommendation would be for the reso heads on your toms to use something like an Ambassador Clear. These are the standard, the tried and true, and they're not too thin where your drum's gonna be ringing for forever. And again, just like the snare, I tune the reso head higher than the batter head. I feel that I get optimal sounds out of my drum that way. Then if you want to get that warm, controlled sound out of your toms, I would always recommend going with a double ply head. On the batter side, something like a Remo Emperor, either coated or clear. That's generally my go-to head, but again, I'll switch it up from time to time. Then setting up your drums and being comfortable behind them is going to be absolutely vital for you to play better. So make sure that you take the time to really set things up right. Making sure that your cymbals aren't too high or too low, that they are right in a comfortable place for you to hit them. Making sure that your snare and your floor tom are around the same height so you can go back and forth between them. And finally, stacks. Incorporating stacks is just really fun, and it can improve your sound even though they kind of sound like crap. It's just a fun accessory to have. So if you have two crappy cymbals or some broken cymbals, I would always incorporate a stack somewhere into your kit, mostly because it's fun, but it does add in a new element to your playing. It's almost like a new percussion instrument that doesn't quite fit into toms, and it doesn't quite count as a cymbal even though it is. It's more of an accent piece. They're just fun. It's just fun. All right, next up we are talking about speed. Totally nailed that. And a big part of speed has to do with technique, because if your technique is off or you are gripping the sticks too tight, well, then you are not gonna get very much speed. So we are gonna start off by talking about the push-pull technique. The push-pull technique is simply where you are going to grip the stick with your pointer finger and your thumb and just let your fingers rest on the stick. Then you are going to push your stick down and let the stick come up, and then you are going to pull your fingers in so that your stick comes down and it pops the stick back up. This is kind of like dribbling a basketball. Working on this technique will strengthen those micro muscles that you need to be able to gain more speed, and this is a really great way to get rid of tension in your playing. Next up is the slide technique. Now this is for your bass drum pedal. A lot of people ask how you get quick double strokes on the single pedal, and for me, I use the slide technique. Basically, a walkthrough of that is you have your heel up, and then what you want to imagine is lifting your heel a little bit higher and tapping the pedal so that it goes down once, and then you actually bring your whole foot and your leg down to catch it on that second bounce. But there's no doubt about it, when it comes to speed, we do need to work on our muscle development as well, and that is where Tabata comes in. Tabata is essentially interval training. So this is where you work at something as fast as you can for 20 seconds, and then you get a 10-second rest. And you repeat this for 4 minutes straight. So this is a great way to work on your single strokes, double strokes, or rudiments, just putting it through that Tabata filter, because trust me, your muscles will be burning. Now finally, we are going to talk about how to improve your fills. And the first way is really counterintuitive, and that is adding space to your fills, or maybe just having your entire fill be a gap in your playing. This is so effective and so underutilized, but sometimes focusing on adding more space to a fill rather than more notes can ultimately feel better and sound better. A super easy one is incorporating rudiments into your fills. Whether you are just playing a rudiment and just moving your dominant hand around the kit, that is a great place to start. Otherwise, you can sub in kick drum notes for certain notes. So not quite a rudiment split like we did earlier, but maybe if you're playing a paradiddle and just that first left you replace with a kick, then everything else is the same. You can really start to get cool patterns as you apply it to the kit. If you are looking to improvise and create more fills on the fly, something that's incredible to utilize are fill starters. This is simply just a short pattern where you know like the first 4 notes, but your brain is going to fill in the rest of the fill. Hey. So an example of this could be saying that your fill starter is going to be the sticking pattern right, left, kick. So you know once you are done with your beat, you're going to play right, left, kick somewhere along the kit. It's not specific, and then you are just gonna let your brain fill in the gaps. This is a really cool way to be creative and be inspired by some new patterns, and it can really help you improvise much better. One incredibly simple way to improve your fills is by just adding in a closed hi-hat. Now, for me, I grew up playing all my fills just between the snare and the toms and the kick drum. But once I started throwing in little notes on the closed hi-hat, I noticed these fills started to sound much more complex and just much more refreshing. Having something much more high-end into the mix adds a lot more texture to your overall fills rather than just the big sounds of your drums. So even if you have your existing fills, maybe try throwing in the closed hi-hat into some of them and see how it changes things up for you. And in the same way, I want you to start incorporating some other EFX symbols like stacks, which we already talked about, but incorporating them into your fills, as well as like the bell of your ride or maybe some cymbal chokes. All of these things can make your fills much more unique and honestly, much more improved. Now, a lot of these tips showed you what to do to improve your drumming, but if you want a more concrete path on how to actually implement all these things into your drumming in a clear, concise way, that's where I think my online drum school, DBO Academy, is going to be huge for you. Doors open August 31st, so mark your calendars, and in the meantime, I am giving you my free drum workshop called Become a Rock Drummer. You can go ahead and click right here to join that totally for free. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Stay true, and I will see you soon. Bye.